Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole for January the 23rd. I almost forgot the date. I'd like to acknowledge that the Northern Rockies Administration Center is located in the heart of the traditional territories of the Dene Cree and Daneza peoples of the Province River and Fort Nelson First Nations. We further recognize the rights provided by our treaty. Finally, we celebrate the contributions and the enduring presence of the Métis people in our region. I'd also like to say that tonight's meeting is available to the public to attend virtually and is being streamed and recorded. I have no additions to this. Are there any council additions to the Committee of the Whole agenda? Any from staff?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Is everybody okay with the agenda? It's a consensus meeting, so all right. There is a set of minutes there from January 9th. Again, consensus if anybody, is there anything there? Anybody saw errors or omissions? Seeing none. Public comment period. Is there anybody online that needs to speak? Anybody in the gallery that would like to speak? All right, there are no reports, bylaws, or policy. So that brings us to the Committee of the Whole Report 0223, which is a discussion on the Viewpoint Film Project questionnaire. I will turn it over to staff and
good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Get a nod. Perfect. Okay, thanks. So as you know, you decided to move forward with this Viewpoint project just before Christmas. And we've been working on pulling together some ideas and starting some conversations around what that project might look like. So I'm just going to share my screen for a minute. Well, probably more than 1 minute. I'm being on it. So just to start the brainstorming on this Viewpoint project, I would like to highlight a couple things from our tourism marketing strategy, just because I think that they make sense and reflect, at least from the tourism perspective, and then also from the community engagement piece. We did significant community engagement around this tourism strategy in 2021, and I believe that it connects well with this project, even if it is from at a broader scope of not specifically tourism, and also including the resident and investor marketing as well. So from the tourism marketing strategy, there were a number of themes and emotional benefits that came out through the conversations that we had with public and stakeholders, including our diverse landscapes and natural features, abundant, remarkable wildlife, expansive natural areas, outdoor and travel experiences, remoteness, escape, tranquility, our history, and history including cultural and industry, and the use of rivers and all of that combines into our culture and history. Figure out how to move my screen over. Sorry, as I work off of just a laptop, I might be a little bit less smooth than I may otherwise like to think of myself. The marketing strategy also has identified 3 pillars, which I won't go into like the nitty-gritty detail, but wildlife and nature, I think, is fairly self-explanatory. The history and culture that is throughout our whole region and it's very rich. And then the remote and disconnection is a little bit of a different one, and really came from the conversations of people wanting to get out of cities, wanting to get into natural and fresh air and have a little bit more distance, have more of the mindfulness moments with mental health, and some of those pieces to wellness travel all came out pretty strong as a potential pillar for our region. And then some other kind of key words and senses that came out in all of these conversations were serenity and freedom and escape and pride in self and overcoming challenges in some of our hikes, or going on a 2-week horsebacking trip, or that adventure and excitement and just awe of sceneries, even like this section of road that and how the sun comes across things. Sense of calm, the sense of wonder were all things that people talked about for our area. And then some more specific words that have come out for related to marketing our areas: unfamiliar and new and inventive and down to earth and real and unpolished in all the best ways, unfiltered, organic, underexplored, natural, fresh were all things that came out during our discussions for tourism strategy and the marketing strategy. And then just related to attracting the right kinds of visitors, residents, and investors. This is strong in our tourism marketing strategy, and just generally looking towards moving from a quantity perspective. We don't necessarily want just everybody and their dog coming, either moving to investing or visiting our area. We really want quality, and we want people who will respect our environment and respect our communities and people, and engaging warmly and having some of those similar values for people, places, history, and connection are really important when we think about marketing. So all that kind of as a bit of a preamble to hopefully help set your minds and visions and your senses. And I'd like to go into a brainstorming and just a discussion on what comes to your mind. So there was 6 topics that I've pulled out of the questionnaire from Viewpoint, and these were in the admin report, or the committee of the whole report. And I'm actually going to bump. I originally thought that I would do this right in a presentation, but I found a online like a sticky note board, which has been sent out to our Tourism Action Committee as well. So I'm hoping that this works to be able to share, and I'll try and add in as best as I can as we go, and that's what the recording will be for if I miss things. Does that work for Mayor and Council if we maybe go through each section and just discuss and add in as people? Sure. Yeah.
Sure, I think that will work. I think we'll open the discussion really to everybody in the room.
Okay. And can people see?
No.
No. I can't make it any bigger on my little laptop. I might have to read them out to get started, and then we can just add in. My apologies for that not working as well as planned. We can also send this link out to council to continue to add into this over the next couple days or week. But
that's
so
better. That's quite a bit better now. We can read that.
Oh, you can read it now? It didn't change.
No, I zoomed it on here.
Okay. Beautiful.
So I think it's following you as you move it. So we'll go with that.
Okay. So under can everybody see the yellow sticky note?
Yes.
So under educational messages, some things that have already come out are the living in or with nature, kind of creative solutions. And I think that connects with our vermicomposting, balancing economy, lifestyle, and nature wilderness, benefits of rural communities, the MKMA and their unique management style and methods and balancing, muskeg and biodiversity and carbon sinks, and then boreal forest as a lungs for the planet has all come out so far. So we are open to any and all ideas at this point this will just help really educate and provide context and information to Viewpoint, where we can start working on building a story that makes the most sense. So there's no wrong ideas at this point. If anybody has anything.
Well, I think from an educational messages perspective, the first one that jumps to my mind is the work that we're doing with the Indigenous nations. I think that we need to get that across, and whatever it is that we do, that locally we're working hard to make sure that happens. And if that forms part of the storyboard, I certainly would like to see that. And it leads me then also to making sure that we're interacting with the nations to make sure that their perspective is being brought into this storyline.
Yes, so I have reached out via email to Fort Nelson First Nation and Prophet River First Nations, and we'll follow up once I'm back in the office as well.
Yeah. So then I'm recalling myself back to a report that I got to help me write a bit of an article for a real estate magazine, and one of the things that I really tried to force with is that this is not just a wide spot in the Alaska Highway, that there's an amazing amount of history here. And, this community is more than 200 years old. And I think that's another educational message that we could get in there.
Yeah, like there's the trading, the army, like everything for the history of it. It's huge here.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
This is a place where there aren't enough farmers to tell another farmer that you can't grow bananas. And I actually find that, I say that as a kind of a catchy thing, but the creative solutions idea is one that actually we've got layers of that in this community, where people are finding ways to work with nature and do a better job of it than you are in the commercial world.
Yeah, so understanding that there's more frost-free hours, more growing light in this country, then people wouldn't get that because they don't understand the way the season, the sun, the day, extended daylight, that we have more frost-free hours here and grid daylight growing than the Peace. And everybody associates the Peace as the breadbasket of BC. So those are things that are unique, I guess, that people wouldn't otherwise think of.
Great, keep shooting them at me, or would you like me to move on to a different one and we can always come back?
I have one more to add. I
Yeah,
don't know if it goes here, but because I haven't seen what's on the rest of the categories, but something around our rivers, like, I don't know how it fits into the educational component, but like the water, the rivers, like the movement of, like, I don't know, something like that.
the movement of like people and goods, or the movement of actual water for all.
Both.
Well, I was thinking both for sure. What came to my mind was just that movement, right? Yeah, so it's always in flux. It's always moving.
Yeah, and it made me think of like the people and goods.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
both sides of it. For sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I thought of the whole watershed, the whole Liard River Basin, which is so huge, right? That it has some very unique features on it.
Well, and we have water that flows both ways within the municipality. Once you get Summit, it flows the other, but it all goes to the same river. But we got water masses flowing in complete different directions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So this purple section is unique aspects of the region, community, and lifestyle. So some of these are going to be similar or the same, and we don't worry about if it belongs under this bucket or that bucket. So far we've got support from community when someone needs help or has a medical or financial challenge. The animals, so Serengeti of the North, the diverse wildlife. the Musqueam management area, welcoming and taking in visitors and new residents. We do hear that over and over, just how welcoming our community is. Wilderness and just the fact that we're 10% of the province of BC land-wise, geographically.
I'd
And
emphasize
then-
that wilderness, like it's true wilderness for miles.
Mhm. And then the history point here as well, including Indigenous lifestyles, waterways as transportation corridors, the trading history, and the Alaska Highway World War II history.
In the trading history, it's actually unique from the perspective of it. This part of the BC opened up because of traffic, right? Most of the other regions either opened up because of gold mining, agriculture, grain and or cattle, right? Caribou with cattle and the Peace Country with grain. But this part of the country opened up because of traffic, which is, it goes with the trading bit.
Mhm.
In our generations, First Nations generations, it opened up for a lot before us. Probably because of the abundance of wildlife and opportunity for food sources, fish, etc.
Anything else on this one, or should I keep going? I don't
The
know.
other one on
I
the-
can't
on
read
the
the
mus-
room.
On the Musqueam,
Mhm.
it's one of the last predator-prey intact predator-prey ecosystems, and I'm just not sure if you've got that in there. Yeah. In North America.
Perfect. Added that in. Okay, so under just interesting anecdotes or inspiration, we've got the lowest and the highest points of the Alaska Highway are within our region, so the Musqueam River and then at Summit.
I think somebody needs to take a ride with Councillor Souls along the highway. Last time I did with him, he spent the whole time telling me interesting anecdotes about the history of the forest and everything. Like, I'm sure he could fill that one right up. It was great. Yeah, like there's fossils all along the highway, like the old mills that used to be all over the place that you can still find, like the old history that kind of just got left, like all the old highway camps and the old vehicles.
The hidden waterfalls.
Yeah. Just hidden gems all over the place. We also have, world-class sled dog racers. They're inspirational.
Turn your mic on, Councilor.
I think of the certainty of being able to see northern lights here. You might not get them every day. You get them here.
Yeah.
Brenda makes sure that we all see them. And that's good.
Did you capture the banana growing in the last one? Because that's definitely should be here.
It can live in. Awesome. Okay, well, we can always keep coming back. So in this orange section, we've got just keywords or short phrases that represent our region. So right now we've got mileposts, including historical mile 300 for Fort Nelson, and then Serengeti of the North.
Mosquitoes.
Dog sleds.
We have a great deal of independent
Mhm.
destiny people that kind of chart their own way. Lots.
I was just gonna add the for the longest time, we were the resourceful Fort Nelson, which was tongue in cheek back in the day because things were booming, but nonetheless, we still are full of resources.
Mm.
And then the natural sense of the word, when you talked about creative solutions, we're still a resourceful community when you think about a lot of the things that have come to be because we're trying to solve some unique challenges.
Okay, nobody's jumping back at me, so I'll keep moving along and
Yep. I think
images that come to mind. So we've got skiing and snowshoeing in the winter and northern lights and hiking and the hot springs, wildlife, winter wonderland. So the beautiful horse frost that we just had on the trees for such a couple weeks. Our sunrises and sunsets that last a long time, which isn't always the case in other places.
clear blue skies,
Mm.
clear blue sky.
And the clear water running down the
Clear water.
riverbeds.
Mountains.
Yeah, back to the river, back to the mountains.
I always think of mountains when I think of home. Mountains and rivers. I guess.
And fishing.
We also have some neat lakes. We talk about the rivers quite often, and we were talking about the waterways and stuff. Like, you know, Muncho Lake is massive. It's pretty interesting on its own. And there's Summit Lake, and then we've got our little wreck spots. Like, we also got some lakes and overgrown sloughs. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, you look at the difference between Cacho Lake and Muncho Lake. You know, right? One is in a flat muskeg area, and the other one's right in the middle of the heart of the mountains, and we've got both here. Yeah. Yeah, there's a good one, biodiversity.
When the general term wildlife viewing is good, but I find it fascinating. One day on my way to town and I saw a wolverine walking on the walking trail. When do you get that kind of wildlife view? Like, where do you find that? That's actually it's almost something special in its own right, where you see the hard to see wildlife get seen.
Yeah, you take it for granted. I've got grouse and deer, and I even had a wolf in the backyard, like, right in town.
I think for images, I think I always think of paddle boarders or kayaking, like, you know, those pictures always come to mind. I know it's associated with the water, but yeah.
There's some great old churches here. Both ones that are still in use and ones that are not. The one at Prophet River, the one at the old fort. The Catholic Church is an old church here. So there's some old churches here that are I think would be interesting.
Okay, and the last one, and it's hopefully a shorter section, but just anything that should be avoided. So two things that have already been added include words or descriptions that may infer political alignment, and then words, descriptions that may limit possibility. Example, how resource town may connotate a lack of environmental or sustainable interest. So is there anything that comes to mind that should be avoided when we start looking at this?
This is kind of a double-edged sword. The one that jumps right to my mind is the boom and bust cycle of but that's part of our history, right? To me, that's part of our history. That's what happens, but it's probably something we might not want to mention.
So maybe sensitivity
That's the
around.
positive. Yeah, that's the positive side of it. If they're going to talk about boom and bust, then they should also talk about resilience. That's great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We just for the sheep numbers, we might want to not want to promote their sheep up here as a sheep hunter. of interest. We can leave that out. I just,
It's just tongue in cheek.
I said there was no bad suggestions. Okay, is there anything else that comes to mind in any of these categories? Does anybody want to jump back anywhere else? Anything percolated?
Just going back to things we might not want to showcase, maybe some of the downtown core, some of the closed up businesses, brown lots, those things. Depending on the angle you're looking at, the town can look vibrant and beautiful, and then look the other way, and it's
Mhm.
not quite as flattering. So maybe, yeah, maybe that.
That's a good one.
Yeah. All right. Well, if anything else does come to mind, you know how to reach staff, and this is what I had prepared for discussion at this point, and we'll keep working with our Indigenous neighbors and the Tourism Action Committee and Viewpoint, moving this forward towards starting to pull together the pre-production, which would be the draft storyline and concepts there. Or I anticipate are the next steps. So.
I have a overall issue. I guess it's not so much an issue as it is. They're coming in the summertime. This is as much a winter community as it is a summer community, maybe more so. And you know, I just don't know how they're going to be able to highlight those winter activities that are such a big part of living where we live when they're going to be here in the summertime. So maybe it's just a matter of discussing that with them. You know, the overall, lots of your keywords will be winter words. There's no doubt about it. But just that concept that this is as much a winter community as it is a summer, maybe more so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll definitely highlight that, and I don't think we can get them to come up on a second trip, but there may be an opportunity to either utilize other winter assets that we do have that, depending on usage and rights, we may be able to utilize some other content to mix in with what they're able to capture this summer, or we may be able to look at seeing if it's out there that we could get rights potentially.
Yeah.
We can discuss for sure, or have it in verbal at least.
Or we turn a bunch of YouTubers around here loose. Yeah.
Well, great. That's all I have planned for you. So open to other comments or to let you carry on. And yeah.
Does anybody have any other epiphanies? Oh, please.
I was thinking when we talk about uniqueness of Fort Nelson, I was just talking about the Hand Game Society. They're going to be hosting the only BC traditional men's hand games tournament every August. So I think that's something unique to Fort Nelson and to BC alone. And then the other thing that I don't see on the water sports is jet boating. Like I think jet boating in this area is pretty significant with some people. And I don't know if we have the river rafting anymore down at Liard Hot Springs. But if we we should. The other winter activity would be the Canadian Dog Sled Championships. That I don't know if the Stroopers still have them, but you know, a highlight of a winter activity.
and there's also trail riding out at Toad as well. And they're supposed to be doing it again this year. Horse rides this year as well.
Even our community snowmobile trails from the Skidoo Club worked exceptionally hard on.
And the walking trail.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great job. Yeah, if anything else comes to mind. Yeah, no, you get an opportunity. There's lots of opportunity to keep adding to this as we go. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for that. I think it went well. I think we had lots of good ideas.
Yes, great. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
You're welcome. All right, that takes us to committee of the whole report 0323, which is the active mobility study implementation, the Andy Bailey Regional Park staff.
Thanks, Mayor Sean, and Hill will speak to this and we'll get into some discussion about potential next steps.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. First off, before we get into the report, I'd just like to bring to your attention that the original Parks and Trails Asset Management Study that was provided to you in December 15th, there has been some revisions to that. So the numbers that we saw originally are off a little bit. For example, the combined all-in Class D report or cost of phase 1 and 2 for Andy Bailey will be $538,085, not $530,610 as noted in the analysis of this report. So it's a difference of $7,415. And the consultant fees for both phases up slightly by approximately $225 for each phase. So following the presentation from Lees and Associates in December 15th council meeting, we're here today for further discussion on the Parks and Trails Active Mobility Study, specifically the Andy Bailey phases of that study. As mentioned in the report, staff submitted an EOI to the Destination Development Fund, and we've been invited to stage 2, which is full application. And if we are successful in that application, there is a potential that the project could be 100% funded. However, the downside to that is the application is due by February 9th. So we're looking at a pretty tight timeline right now. A requirement of that application is regional council support for the project through council resolution. So that's the reason why we're back here today. We understand the council hasn't been given an opportunity to provide any feedback on any of the conceptual design thus far. So we're here today to facilitate that discussion. If council would like, we can bring up Lee's conceptual drawings on the big screen there and we can have a discussion about it. But as noted in the report, the intent for this evening is to review the concept drawings and the Class D costs. And then hopefully we'll return at a later date for a possible resolution for project support. So if that's what everybody wants to do, we can bring the drawings.
Are there
up.
any questions, first of all, about the grant, its application, or anything before we start looking at the concept drawing? Okay, seeing none, I think that's probably what we'll do. We'll have a look at, because they were presented to us, but we're gonna have to do that. So
No, for sure. Absolutely. Try to blow it up as big as we can. Is it still a little too small?
I'm pulling mine up on the computer, but go ahead.
Okay, so this is Andy Bailey Park, and these are the concepts that Lee's has come up with after some public consultation. They had a couple of engagements with stakeholders, and this was a result of some of the feedback that was brought back from some of that. So just high level, I'll just touch on some of the comments that were given from round 1 community engagement for Andy Bailey. More RV parking stalls and tenting area, Please clean the vegetation on the beach, upgrade washrooms, more sand on the beach. A dock would be great for kayak swimming, but consider safety. Change rooms, wheelchair accessible beach mats, beach chairs. Mud is hard for autistic kids. Dangerous trees need to be addressed. A dock will be great. Shelter with community fire pit and cooking. Accessible boat launch, wheelchair to the toilets. So things of that nature. That's been the focus of it. So they captured that on here. As you can see. Yeah, so the list for it was to replace the outhouse near the beach with an accessible outhouse and change room. Upgrade outhouse pathways, improve pedestrian circulation between day use parking and beach. Establish and sign accessible parking and adjacent to the beach. Sorry, stalls adjacent to the beach. Replace concrete barriers at the beach with split rail fencing. Install a beach mat for accessible swimming. Install accessible picnic tables at the beach area. Install screened in bug shelter at the beach area. Reestablish the sandy beach area. It's been grown up with grass and weeds for a number of years. Retrofit campsites 1 and 2 for accessibility. Supply firewood at existing firewood sheds. There aren't any existing firewood sheds. That was a misprint there.
So
Improve
maybe,
signage,
maybe what it should be is put the firewood shed.
put firewood sheds there, yeah.
And
Improve some signage throughout the park to indicate new amenities such as accessible camping spots and outhouses, and to clarify parking rules and the boat launch and other areas. So that was what was suggested for phase 1. And then phase 2, sorry.
Yeah, phase 2 bumps up all outhouses to be accessible, and same with campsites as a start. So those were included in phase 2, as well as a storage shelter for equipment rentals, a second bug shelter, the accessible dock with a non-motorized personal watercraft launch, additional accessible picnic tables, retrofitting remaining campsites and outhouses, installing a nature play area, converting some existing campsites to pull-through RV sites, and establishing a group campsite, new vehicle campsites, and walking campsites. Yeah, and then the rest of the outhouses to be accessible.
So that's the overall concept for Andy Bailey right now. That's laid out in 2 phases.
and the grant would cover both phases? It's large enough to cover
grant is-
all the potential works?
The grant is for $1 million.
Up to a million,
up to
but
a
the
million.
538 million is,
538,000.
yeah, or million.
And that's. the
Five
class-
hundred thirty-eight thousand is what we've come up.
That's the class D right now. We're also working with Lisa's right now, trying to get a class C to get a little,
Right.
just for the grant application if we go ahead with that.
And do we think they'll be able to provide that in time?
The class C, yeah, we're
Class
hoping they're
C.
gonna have that within a week or so.
Okay, questions? Councilor Roper?
Is it a matching grant or, so I see the final figure is around the 500,000 mark. If we add more on and get closer to that $1 million, does that cost us any more, or does it just mean that the grant will cover more?
Right.
So this is the grant. We had to apply for, or we had to put in an expression of interest. So that was in December, and we gave the total number of both phases. So that's the cap at this point. Part of the second stage application does ask for, if your project receives less funding, is there an opportunity to scale the project? So just some preliminary notes for the next part of the grant application, we've outlined working with council to establish what those phases would be if we receive less funding, coming back to council to determine what the priorities would be.
Yeah, so you just put fewer amenities there, right?
Right.
Scale it back, scale it down, and it's less money to us. So it probably would be disingenuous if we went from 538,000 to 750,000 because we threw a whole bunch more at it.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway, Councilor Gurley?
So I think in terms of if we have to set priorities, I think the number 1 priority should be accessibility. So everything needs to revolve around that, in my opinion.
in terms of priorities and things of that nature, that's stuff that we obviously got to bring back to council. I mean, it's good to start thinking about that right now, but it doesn't have to be part of the submission as a grant to get submission full scope of work. Right, so that $538,000 more.
So the overall thought right now is hopefully that we could get some more feedback from council and mayor, whether or not you feel that the concept drawing is something that you may not be looking forward to in the future, or if there's changes you would like to see with regards to, do you want a shed moved here? Do you want something to that extent? And then, as Scott mentioned, we would come back at a later date prior to the February 9th deadline with another report looking for your support. So if there's any comments or suggestions right now, that would be awesome.
Additionally, as when council does have that decision, if they're in support or not, that would enable further seeking from the community or letters of support that would be attached to the grant.
Comments, please, Councilor.
Yeah, I'm very much in support of all the pieces. I don't know that I'm fully versed in where all the pieces would go. I have a few concerns about expanded outhouses. They're looking, I don't know, because you know me and maps, but it's a struggle. It looks close, really close to the beach. And so just wanting to make sure, having been at a couple campgrounds where the outhouses were too close to the campsites. At times it wasn't very pleasant to be around the campfire. So just those kinds of concerns, but like I very much approve all the pieces. I'm just not exactly sure about the location. I especially like the expanded campsites. I think that is the way that we need to be going.
So to your point on that, Councillor Gerwing, if council did decide to approve the project and we went to detailed design, at that point, we would come back to council again over the span of the detailed design for your input to see if you guys are okay with the design as it is. And that's
Yeah.
when you could bring up those points and you could make adjustments accordingly.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in big support of this whole project. I liked seeing them out in the community, you know, getting input, the whole process, and definitely what we heard is reflected into the planning. Like I don't see this one being amiss. I think the only thing I would like to see is a lot of our aspen used in any wood construction, but wherever we can, that'd be cool.
Any other feedback, input? Councilor Souls?
I think a detail that we should discuss is whether or not we have some kind of a surveillance system on the set up on the park, just right off the bat, just simply because we've seen some fairly significant vandalism at new installs in the past, and it'd be good if we could nip it in the bud.
Well, I think you make a very valuable point too. Like, I mean, the fire pits have gone missing from the park, Andy Bailey, like, so I have concerns with the gazebo. We did have a gazebo up at the ski trails and, you know, that was vandalized and burnt. And so I've been rolling that around in my brain ever since that this came to be. And there's some parks where they will offer somebody a free site for the season, and that provides security and collect, you know, so there's some options I think that we would have to investigate, because if we're going to make such a financial investment in this park, I think you bring up the really, really unfortunately valid point, and we'll have to be on it.
Yeah, my experience with some of the parks in the Peace River Regional District is exactly that way. Whether it's Blackfoot Park, which is the most recent, that's out at Goodloe, at the crossing there, Goodloe, used to be just a bunch of sites pulled over and a place where people would put their boats in, and then it became a park, and then they got some grants for it, and then they saw the vandalism, and it just naturally evolved to having a park attendant, which naturally evolves to having a, you know, a $10 camping fee or whatever, just to help offset the cost of that. But I think getting the asset there is the best idea. If including some kind of security, I doubt if that'll take it up, you know, much more than maybe rounding it off to the next thousands of dollars. And that probably won't look like we're, now that they've accepted our or invited us, you know, that we're not trying to gouge into it. So I like the amenities that the contractor has chosen. I agree that the final detail is something that staff will come back to us with. And that includes the difference between wood and cement sometimes. And that's why with the Gotta Go project, we went with those cement bathrooms because they just weren't going to be able, we weren't gonna have people there. And so they're not the prettiest, but they're they're very utilitarian and people seem to be, for the most part, stopped there this morning. It seems like people are respecting them. So, but those are decisions I think that we can make later, right? Okay, good. Is there any other discussion? Okay, so I think we have consensus to move ahead with the project. You're going to come back with Class C estimates and another report that you want us to actually resolve for support prior to February the 9th. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Will we have, sorry, Mayor, will we have, because we don't necessarily have to come back to the Class C estimates to councils. I believe the value of the project has pretty well been established based on the EOI and the being invited to the second phase of the process. The key piece right now with council, what we need, and the reason why we came in to the committee of the whole meeting so that council would be no pressure into having to make a decision can't make in this meeting, but what we will need from council prior to February 9th, if council is in favor of this grant submission, is the resolution of support for the project itself.
Well,
that's what we need from
because this is timely, is there any reason that we couldn't move it to this afternoon's regular?
Not at
meeting?
all. Council can do it. I mean, if it's, we just didn't want council to feel like there's an obligation. We were willing to come back if need be, if need time to chew on it, or how the conversation
Okay.
would go. But if council
I
is
just heard
comfortable-
Sean say that he'd be coming back to us, and I thought that was part of the process, but if we'll add it on tonight's agenda because it's timely.
then it saves us having to
Yeah.
come back to the special meeting.
Okay.
For sure.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it.
Welcome. Now I gotta make sure I add it on the agenda. I'm sure somebody will remind me. Andy Bailey. Okay, I think we have a bit of an in-camera agenda to go into. We don't need a resolution to do that. We can just go in camera. So we'll do that now.
Do we have some new business on that agenda?
Did I miss?
Just
Did I miss?
the invitation from Fort Nelson First Nation.
The section 7 mayor invitation, informal meet and greet.
I'm sorry. Page 2. Yeah. 7-1, the invitation from Theo Berry, please.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. So we've been working with Fort Nelson First Nation regarding the council to council or community to community meeting, and Chief Gale and that council has indicated there's a fairly busy slate schedule here coming up in the next little while. Very much in favor and wanting to have a meeting with council, more formal meeting with council to talk about priorities and whatnot and discuss that. However, what they've suggested in the meantime is the council is in favor of meeting for more of an informal meeting, so a lunch or a dinner where it's less formal. Still talk about priorities and whatnot if wish, but it's more of an icebreaker and less formalities, and at least council gets an opportunity to, both councils get an opportunity to meet and possibly that time too is maybe discuss what a future meeting may or may not look like and even timing for one. So just throwing it out there for council for any discussion, and if any questions you may have, and if possible, we can start looking at some potential dates.
Works for me.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think we'd hope to move to a little bit of a more formal agenda. But if I learned anything last week at the resource forum, it was that you've got to start with your neighbors as, you know, in a relationship before you get into formal, and 2 new councils. So, you know, we, you know, it appears to me from everything I've checked that the past 2 councils have had a great working relationship. And so we need to rebuild that with the 2 new councils, and this is probably a really good idea. So dinner or lunch doesn't, it really doesn't matter to me. Few of them, please. Councilor
I
Dickey.
think I don't have a problem with having an informal meet and greet meeting with council to council, but out of that meeting, providing there's a definite date for a schedule, whether it's quarterly or, you know, twice a year or whatever the schedule is, but to start making it a time in our calendars that we are committed to meeting.
Yep, no, for sure. And what we'll do in the meantime here is we'll circle back and we'll obviously be connecting with you to, well, I've sent something out around availability, so I've gotten a couple of responses in terms of where you're not available. So just, you know, if there are any no-go dates, if you can provide that to me, with the exception of the ones I've already done that. And we'll start working on some dates with their admin to meet for a lunch or a dinner or something. And then, of course, there's definitely desire to set those meetings up, and that was expressed by them. I think it came down to set that meeting date was probably going to be past March, and they wanted to do something prior to that. And so expressed an opportunity to do that.
Okay, we will leave that in your capable hands. Now we can move into